Hey everyone, this is Matthew Kent, and welcome to Theology on the Ground, the daily thought from my quiet time. Now, this year I'm going over a different Bible reading plan than I have in years past. In years past, I went over the Discipleship Journal, Bible reading plan, and it's a great plan. You know, there's 4 different places in the Bible that you're reading. It gives you 25 days a month so that you have time to catch up. For the sake of changing things up, because I've done that plan about 8 or 9 or 10 times, I'm doing the Robert Murray McShane Bible plan. And so one of the interesting things that happen is because it's tackling things in a different order, I'm getting to some passages that I've read recently in the other plan. So instead of being a year apart between reading passages, some of them are closer together. And so I haven't been doing these videos even of the daily quiet time videos, thoughts from my quiet time, for a year. But then I think this passage I'm getting to twice, and I think I might have even talked about this one in another video, but it's so important that even if I did, I'm talking about it again. This is Luke chapter 23 and verses 31 and 32. This is Jesus talking to Peter, who of course is also named Simon. Jesus says, "Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers." Now, there's a lot here, and it's staggering. The number one thing that's here that's important is just the absolute sovereignty of God. So Satan is not this co-equal force with God. It's not some kind of dualism that Christians believe in, that there's a powerful good force and a powerful evil force that are equal and opposite, and they're constantly at war, and we just got to hope the good guy wins. And as C.S. Lewis points out in his writings, if that were the case, we wouldn't even know which one's right and which one's wrong, because there'd just be whichever one we preferred over the other. But there'd be no reason for preferring love to cruelty. We just, that's kind of our preference. There has to be one almighty God over all in order for there to be anything meaningfully. So I like the concept of good. Satan is bad because he's rebelling against God, who is the one true God and is therefore good. And so Satan is not this equal but opposite being. Satan is lower, is ultimately not even a qualified opponent, and only gets to do as much as God will let him do. And so it's a little bit odd for us because, well, if he's the enemy of God, why doesn't God just crush him immediately and not let him do anything? And because in the sovereignty of God, God has his purposes. And so we see a tiny bit of that here. But the other thing that we notice here is that one of the thing that Satan does here is to really go after and attack Peter, and God's going to let him. And presumably this is going to lead to Peter's faith failing in terms of denying Jesus 3 times. So in other words, this is something that was probably very difficult for Peter. He very strongly says, no, Lord, I'll never deny you. But God lets it happen anyway. And so it's important to remember that in terms of God and his will for our lives, it's not necessarily his will that we never suffer, that we never go through hard times, that we never go through trials of faith. It's actually his will that we go through those things. And you see that he has a plan for Peter on the other side. He said, when you have turned again, in other words, you are going to fail. When you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. And so you have this aspect here of Peter. Satan has demanded permission to come after you, so we've granted it to him. He's going to come after you. You're going to fail, at least temporarily, but I've prayed to God that you won't fail ultimately, and the Father hears my prayer, and you're going to turn again. And when you have turned, I want you to strengthen your brothers. In other words, it's sort of implied here that, listen, there's a reason behind this, that once you have repented, been restored, come back, you're going to be in position to strengthen those Christians around you. You're going to be in a position to say, hey, my faith failed and God brought me back. Hey, all the glory to him. And, hey, you can, even if you have these temporary, momentary failings, God's always going to welcome you back. In fact, that was what Jesus told me, that I was going to fail and then I was going to come back. So that's kind of the way that God operates. He's the kind of general on the battlefield that gladly accepts tactical, short-term defeats for the larger victory. And, he doesn't have to. I mean, he could, like we said, just win the victory outright. But there's something to the tapestry of history and the working out of all things, that he's creating something more beautiful by restoring and redeeming things that were broken than if he had just never let things break in the first place. And so that's a really hard truth to swallow when you're in the midst of it, and God, this brokenness just isn't right, and I'm suffering as a result of it, and just please put it right. And ultimately, it's exactly what he is going to do. But he might have a purpose in you going through it at the moment. And he is good. So in those moments, you've just got to have the faith to trust that, like, listen, I'm going to get through this. It's really tough right now. I'm going to get through this, and everything is going to be better off. I'm going to be in a better position to help others and be a comfort to those in need after this has happened to me. Those are my thoughts for today. Hopefully they were useful to you, and Lord willing, I will see you guys all again tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.